Welcome to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to guide you through some truly transformative insights from author Steve Chandler today. We are going to fundamentally rethink how we view setbacks. Seriously, we're looking at the incredibly powerful concept of reframing failure, and specifically, learning how to come from behind. Between you and me, learning how to come from behind is kind of like unlocking a shared secret to lifelong resilience. If you've ever felt completely defeated by a roadblock, just when you thought you were finally making real progress, well, this explainer is exactly what you need.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Why is it that the moment we start working toward a goal, we inevitably hit a wall that makes us feel like we're moving backward? It is a painful but incredibly common frustration. You know the drill. We put in the effort day after day. We finally start to see some tangible results, and then suddenly, bam, we lose ground, just like that. Does that feeling of defeat sound familiar? It immediately feels like a massive failure, doesn't it? We just sit there in the mess of it and start to think we've completely lost our touch.
So, Section 1, the myth of straight lines, or as I like to call it, progress is a dance, not a line.
To understand why that frustrating setback happens in the first place, we first have to tackle this myth of straight lines. Progress towards your goals is absolutely never going to be a straight upward trajectory. It's just not. It will always be a bumpy line. You're going to go up, and then you are inevitably going to come down a little. It's the classic 2 steps forward and 1 step back. But here's the thing. There's actually a really good natural rhythm in that. Think about it. A straight line is rigid. A dance is fluid. There is zero rhythm in a perfectly straight line upward. Once we deeply understand this natural rhythm of progress, we can finally stop panicking when we slide a step back. We can actually start to work with the rhythm instead of constantly fighting against it.
Moving on to Section 2, the physics of fatigue. Because hey, it's science, not personal failure. We often blame ourselves for these dips, feeling like we just don't have what it takes. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how author Alan Loy McGinnis applies hard science to human motivation here. He points directly to the law of entropy. Now, in physics, entropy dictates that all systems, left unattended, will eventually run down. Unless new energy is actively pumped in, the organism will literally disintegrate. Just think about how profound that is for a second. We beat ourselves up, right? We think, oh, I'm just weak or I'm lazy. But no, you don't run out of energy because you're weak. You run out of energy because you are a physical system subject to the exact same laws of physics as literally everything else in the universe. Knowing this in advance absolutely changes everything about how we view our own fatigue.
Which brings us to Section 3, optimists versus pessimists, 2 ways to view a setback.
And that scientific knowledge we just talked about leads to a massive paradigm shift. When that inevitable loss of energy happens, there are really 2 distinct ways to view that step backward, and this completely separates the optimists from the pessimists. Let's compare these 2 worldviews. Pessimists, you see, they're all-or-nothing thinkers. They're actually offended when the world isn't perfect. When they take a step backward, they think it means something deeply negative about the entire project or even their own character. For example, a pessimist might dismiss the idea of a second honeymoon by rigidly crossing their arms and saying, well, if this were a good marriage, we wouldn't have to rekindle the romance. I mean, they don't want to plan for renewal because they fundamentally don't think they should have to. But optimists? They know there will be ups and downs. They aren't scared of the downs. In fact, tough-minded optimists plan for renewal in advance. They actively prepare creative ways to deal with those very downs.
All right, Section 4, schedule your own comeback, working with the rhythm.
So how do we actually put this tough-minded optimist mindset into action? We move from theory to reality by proactively scheduling your comeback. This is highly actionable stuff. You can simply look ahead on your calendar right now and intentionally block out time to refresh, renew, and recover. Don't wait until you crash. Even if you are feeling incredibly up and motivated right now, the absolute smartest thing you can do is plan for your renewal. You need to schedule your comeback while you are still on top. Build in big periods of time to just get away. And here's the paradox, the real kicker. You have to get away even from the things you absolutely love doing. You step away from your passions just for a moment to prevent that scientific entropy from setting in and completely destroying your drive.
Section 5. Age is just a number. Silencing the pessimistic voice.
Now, one of the most common ways that pessimistic voice sneaks in to prevent us from making a comeback is by telling us we're simply out of time. If you ever catch yourself thinking you were just too old to do something, recognize that it is not the voice of truth. It's just that pessimistic voice trying to keep you rigid. But you can talk back to it.
Remind that voice of people who started over whenever they wanted. Take John Houseman, for example. He started acting professionally in his 70s and won an Emmy for The Paper Chase. Or take Steve Chandler's friend Art Hill. Art spent most of his entire life working in advertising, grinding away in a completely different field, but he always secretly wanted to be a writer. He finally took the leap and wrote 2 books for a small publisher in his late 50s. Then, at 60 years old, a time when many people are just coasting into retirement, right? He had his very first national release, a wildly successful book about baseball published by Simon & Schuster.
And this brilliantly illustrates our point. Let's slow down for a second and just look at the dedication of Art's hit book. It simply reads, "To Steve Chandler, who cared about writing, cared about me, and one day said, 'You should write a book about baseball.'" A simple push, a moment of genuine encouragement, helped bypass decades of accumulated excuses.
The crucial point you really need to take away from this is simple. Nobody cares how old you are but you. Seriously, people only care about what you can do. And you can do anything you want, at literally any age. Do not listen to the inner voice that talks about your age or your IQ or your life history. These are just seductive excuses trying to slow your progress and make you fear the natural bumps in the road. Don't be seduced by those excuses. You have the power to start a highly motivated life right now, today. Instead of worrying about the steps backward or how much time has passed, ask yourself this: what challenge will you give your brain today? Embrace the dance, plan for your renewal, and go schedule your comeback. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time.